Hey, I just wanted to do a quick intro video and head off a couple of the questions I figure I'll probably get asked first and possibly repeatedly. First off, why am I here and who am I? Well, one thing I'm here for is to promote my writing. I'm primarily an author of speculative fiction. My series, Gray Man and the God Mars, are available in ebook format pretty much anywhere you can buy an ebook except for Amazon. Smashwords.com is my site, and the links are going to be in the content below on my page, and you'll see a little flag in my end card. So we've been talking a little bit about that. Also, I'm a graphic artist, mostly focused on my writing, illustrations, book covers, so you see some of that behind me, and we'll talk about that. If you want to see more of that, you can go to my Facebook or Instagram accounts, and those links are also on my page, so that's another good place to find some of my content. But I might talk about some of that stuff. Professionally speaking, I've been a social worker and or counselor for 30 plus years now. It's not something I'm really going to talk about whatsoever. Most of that is confidential and in some cases kind of disturbing, though it might flavor other things. But to quote Roy Batty, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. I think I'm going to get the most questions about martial arts at just whatever forum I'm in. That always comes up when we start talking about martial arts. You know, who do you study? What study? We're not going to really talk about that. I don't want to talk about history in terms of specific styles or teachers that I've studied, because I don't feel like I would do them any kind of justice. I don't think it would be respectful. And I'll kind of give you a little history on that specifically right now. Tell you a story. I started formal studies of martial arts back in the mid-'70s when I was a teenager in high school. And it was based on two pieces of inspiration I got at the time. One was the Kung Fu TV series starring David Carradine. That show went a long way to putting me on a path that changed my rather dark life at the time. The other thing was one of my high school teachers suggested that since I was such a sickly kid, I weighed 115 pounds in high school, I had asthma, I had chronic bronchitis, I had an ulcer by the time I was 13, I was allergic to everything, that if I could put my magnificent mind to improving my body, imagine what the result could be. And I specifically aimed myself for martial arts training to do that for a couple of different reasons. And one of the historic reasons that was kind of dogging me the entire time is throughout my young life, there were many incidences of violence on my part. I was taught, conditioned to be peaceful and pacifistic, never to fight, never to hurt people. But because I was so small and so nerdy and kind of a jerk about it and arrogant at times, I often wound up on the wrong end of bullies, and so did my friends. And I would take it and take it and take it until a certain point where I just couldn't anymore. And then something happened. And in that moment of losing control, I discovered I was spectacularly good at violence. And for somebody my size, I could do just unbelievable amounts of damage to much bigger individuals, to the point that they needed medical attention, and then people would leave me alone because they were scared of me. Immediately after doing that, I would feel a rush of ecstasy. I felt so good, so powerful, but it would last about 5 minutes, and then it would crash and I would feel horrible. I would feel physically sickened. I would feel terrible about what I did. I felt guilty. I felt ashamed. And mostly I felt afraid, because there was this thing that I couldn't control. And I knew it was going to happen again. It was only a matter of time in this world. Some fool is going to pick on me or a friend of mine. And at a certain point, I'm just going to lose it. And I'm going to hurt somebody else, or worse. And I had to get that under control. And I chose the martial arts to do that, because it allowed me a safe space and a constructive, structured way to explore the violent aspects of my character and be able to, learn its depths and possibilities, to learn how to ride it, to control it, and turn it into something positive. something healthy, something constructive, and something that I've actually used in my therapeutic career, because it's allowed me to use my experiences and my personality and my skills to go into some pretty dark places to help people, places I wouldn't be able to go otherwise, and feel remotely comfortable. So I don't regret any of that. The other thing that was interesting about my martial arts path is that, as I said, when I lost it, I had a phenomenal natural ability that showed up in training. I was like Neo in the Matrix. If you tried to teach me something that made any kind of practical combative sense, it was like Neo plugging himself into the Matrix and suddenly, he had it down. You could hand me any obscure weapon from history and it just felt natural in my hand, and I seemed to know immediately how to use it. It was kind of like a Jason Bourne kind of a thing. That allowed me to progress very rapidly through everything I could experience. But I don't consider myself a traditional martial artist, and like I said, I'm not going to quote those guys I learned from in those schools or claim to be any kind of master or expert. To sum it up, I would reflect on something Ramsey Dewey, and if you haven't seen his channel, definitely check it out. I love the guy. He talked about the differences between what would be considered a traditional martial art and a modern martial art. And he said it very well, that there are modern martial arts like boxing and wrestling that are hundreds to thousands of years old. There are traditional martial arts that are less than 50 years old. I mean, they're within the last century. So what's the difference? And it's like any other art form. The classical music practitioners out there, classical artists, classical dance, classical theater, people who still do Shakespeare. Everybody does it just a little bit different, and they kind of put their own spin on it, but they're still running the same script, the same manuscripts, and it's still beautiful, it's still meaningful, it's still powerful. But there are people who've devoted their lives to doing that, versus modern theater, modern dance, modern music, any of those things you want to talk about that are more adaptive. The people who devote their lives to preserving that, I can't compete with them. That's not me. So I'm never going to compare myself to them. So I don't consider that. What I did with my career is I got to study under some pretty amazing people, but like I said, I'm not going to talk about them. Miyamoto Musashi, some people really feel this is a Bruce Lee-ism, but it actually goes back to Musashi. His recommendation to study as much as you can, as many different styles and techniques and skill sets as you can, and then take what works for you. And that's what I've done. I still practice things that would be considered traditional classical forms and techniques and things like that, but they don't look like they were when I was taught them, or the way other people practice them. I've adapted them to myself. I've kind of combined them together and distilled them and turned them into something that works for me. And what works for me is based on a couple of things. First of all, it has to be healthy. It has to be good for my physical fitness and my mental health and emotional health, and not hurt me. And as I pointed out in other videos, I'm kind of prone to catastrophic injury. I'm slowly Darth Vadering parts of my body as I go through life. The other thing is it has to be effective for what I feel the primary purpose is, which is also a reflection of what you see in so-called modern martial arts. It has to work for what it works for. Yes, I do follow some of the health aspects and discipline aspects of it, but primarily it's for fighting, it's for combat. So it has to work for that, for me. So there's certain things that, as an older guy, I can't do anymore. There's certain things that have never made sense to me. But a lot of practices, they just don't get out there and look at the practicality, the underlying concepts, the what works aspect of it. So I don't even consider myself a martial artist. I call myself a martial scientist. I study it, I pick it apart, I redo it and turn it into something else. So if we talk about that, if you're getting any useful information out of what I have to say, that's great. But if somebody's going to see what I'm doing and say, that's not the right way to do it, well, if you got some constructive input, I'd love to hear it. I may be an old guy, but I'm still a student. I'm still learning and expanding. But I'm not terribly interested in doing it because that's the traditional or classical way to do it. And if there's a better way, I'm certainly willing to hear it. If you think I'm, just a rambling nut job that doesn't know what I'm talking about, well, that's fine too. That's you. So basically, that's what I wanted to throw out there. Quick introduction to me and what to expect. I'll be doing some obscure product videos surrounding this sort of thing and sharing my art and my writing and other thoughts. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm certainly open to communicating with everybody. And I hope you enjoy this and what I have to offer. And we'll see you soon.